Hello everyone and welcome to the Tori and Ren YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be making one of these round wing zipper bags. But before we do that, I wanted to let you know that this will be my last upload for the year. That's because my next upload will land right on Christmas and Boxing Day around there, and I want to spend as much of the holidays with my family as possible. So what I've decided is I'm going to pause my uploading for the rest of the year, and I'm just going to begin uploading again in January. And hopefully in January I will have a sling bag for you because I've been really wanting to make one of those, and I've finally gotten some hardware that I'm happy with. So keep your eyes out for that in January. But in today's video, like I said, we're going to be making one of these round wing zipper bags. And the name actually comes from the shape of the flap here, because it kind of resembles the wing, I almost said ring, the wing of a bird when it's at rest. And I wanted to do something a little bit different than the round zipper bags that I've seen before. So what I did was I extended the top here with some faux suede or faux leather so that we have a bigger interior pocket. And then I designed this curved flap so that we can have an outer pocket here. Now inside here, I just have some jewelry so that when I'm out and about, I can change my jewelry if I'd like to. And then in the main zipper pocket, I just have some makeup and a scrunchie, so just some necessities. And you can put this in your purse or in your backpack if you go to school. Now, if you'd like to make one of these, you can keep watching this video. I have the full instructions and measurements in it. Or you can check out my Etsy shop for the written instructions. But let's get started. I'm just going to move these out of the way. Beginning with the templates, for this project you're going to need 4 different templates. These are included in my written instructions and they're also in the description box below. When printing, please print at 100% scale so that they're the correct size. This top edge here will measure 6.5 inches when printed correctly. So for this first template, you're going to need the lining template. That's for the zipper pocket. These 2 templates here, this one at the bottom, is for the back here and the inside of this front pocket, so right over here. This one over here is the front pocket here. It's cut on fold. So what that means is we're going to fold our fabric and we're going to align this edge with the fold, and we're not going to cut this line, only around it. And then this template here is for the outer flap, and I just have a marking here for where your snap will be located. Moving on to cutting of print A, you're going to need 2 pieces cut from the bottom template. And when cutting, you want the direction to run vertically, so the top of your print should be at the straight edge. Now, if you'd like, you can fussy cut your design, but I recommend you only do that for one of the pieces because the other one won't be as visible since it'll be inside that front pocket. Of print A, you're also going to need 1 piece cut from the exterior pocket template. And as I said before, it is cut on fold. So if you have directional fabric, you're going to want your design to be vertical, but the bottom of your design to be on this half so that when it's folded, it's the correct direction on the outside. Of print B, you're going to need 2 pieces cut from the flap template. Now when cutting this piece, you're going to want to cut one with the template facing up and one with the template facing down. So you're going to flip the template for the other one. That's because we're going to put these with right sides facing later on. And if we cut them both exactly the same, they won't face each other correctly. Okay, and if you're using directional fabric, for the one that is with the template facing up, so this one here, you're going to want the direction to run vertically with the bottom of your design on the curved edge. For the other one, since this is going to be the other side of the flap, so when it's sewn, it'll be like this. You actually want the direction to be the opposite. So you want the bottom of the design to be on the straight edge and the top to be on the curved edge. That's because when it's closed, the direction will be correct. And then when it's open, the direction will also be correct. Of print B, you're also going to need 1 piece for a zipper tab, and this measures the width of our zipper, so mine's approximately 1 inch by 2 1/4. Next up for print C, you're going to need 2 pieces measuring 2 1/4 by 6 1/2. I'm using this faux suede, but you're welcome to use vinyl, faux leather, or even 100% quilting cotton because this piece will be interfaced. Of print D, you're going to need 2 pieces cut from the lining template. If you're using directional fabric, you're going to want it to run vertically with the bottom of your design on the curved edge and the top of the design on the straight edge. Next up, we have quite a few pieces of fusible fleece. I recommend you use a lightweight fusible fleece such as Pellon 986F. Right now I'm using Pellon 987F, but that's because I ran out of the other one, but you're going to want a nice and light fusible fleece. Starting with the first 2 pieces, you're going to need 2 cut from the bottom template, and these will be fused to the corresponding print A pieces. You're going to need 1 piece cut from the flap template, and when cutting, you're going to want to put the template on top facing up on the glue side. Next, you're going to need 4 pieces measuring 2 by 6.5. 2 of these pieces will be fused to our print C faux suede or faux leather pieces, and the other 2 will be fused to our print A pocket piece to reinforce our snaps. Now this is an optional piece, but this is a 2 by 2 square of fusible fleece, and I'm going to be adding this to the front flap piece just to add some extra reinforcement to my snap. Next up, you're going to need a continuous number 3 nylon zipper measuring 5 3/4. Mine is a metal look-alike zipper by Sally Tomato, and it just came in a package like this. I just cut it down to size and added in my zipper pull. Finally, you're going to need 1 set of snaps. Mine are fashion snaps that are 15.7 millimeters. You're going to need all 4 parts as well as the corresponding tool to install them. Starting with fusible fleece, we have a couple different pieces to fuse, but I'm going to do them starting with print A, moving all the way to print C. Starting with print A, we're going to be fusing the 2 bottom template pieces together. So you want the wrong side of the fabric to face the glue or bumpy side of your fusible fleece. What we're going to do is we're just going to fuse this one and this one. Next, taking your print A pocket piece, what we're first going to do is we're going to fold it in half with wrong sides facing, and we're going to press to crease that center fold. Then what we're going to do is we're going to open it up with the wrong side facing up, and we're going to take 2 pieces of our fusible fleece measuring 2 1/4 by 6.5, and we're going to align 1 piece on each side of that center fold with the glue side facing the wrong side of our fabric, here and here. What this is going to do is when we fold it in half, it's going to create a nice edge here, while also giving us fusible fleece or interfacing to reinforce our snap because it's going to be located about right here. Now, something I want to note is if you look at my fabric, you can see that it's thin enough that you can actually see that edge of the fusible fleece. If that's the case for you, what you're going to instead do is you're going to trim down your pocket template to the seam allowance line, and you're going to cut another piece of fusible fleece to go right here. What this does is it removes the fusible fleece from our seam allowance so we don't create additional bulk in that bottom seam, and the curved edge down here will be nice and crisp later on. And I forgot to mention, I just moved out of the frame, that once you have your pieces in the correct spots, you're going to press to fuse them to the fabric. With your print A flap piece, you're going to take the piece that we cut with the template facing up, and you're going to fuse the wrong side of the fabric to the glue or bumpy side of the corresponding fusible fleece piece. With our print B flap piece, where the template was facing down, we're going to take our 2 by 2 square of fusible fleece and we're going to fuse it to the wrong side here of the fabric. But what we're going to do is we're going to fuse it about right here so that it doesn't end up in our 1/4 inch seam allowance later. We want it away from our seam allowance and just in the right spot that our snap will still be reinforced by it. For the final pieces that need fusible fleece, we're going to take our 2 pieces of print C measuring 2 1/4 by 6.5, and our remaining pieces of fusible fleece measuring 2 by 6.5, and we're going to align them with the bottom edge here and here, with the glue side facing the wrong side, and we're going to fuse them. Now you're going to need a protective layer of fabric because the faux suede does have some plastic content. We don't want it to melt, so you will need a protective layer of fabric to protect it while we fuse it. Now that everything is fused, you're going to notice that you do have a little bit of extra fusible fleece coming out of your pocket piece. What you're going to do is you're just going to trim that off on both sides. Once that's trimmed, we're just going to sew a top stitch on this folded edge here because that's going to be the opening of our pocket. Once your top stitch is complete, it should look something like that. We're now going to set this piece aside until later. Taking your two print B flat pieces, what we're going to do is we're going to put them together with right sides facing, like so. You can see here my fusible fleece square on this side and the full fusible fleece on that side. And what we're going to do is on the fusible fleece side, we're just going to sew around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, leaving this top edge open because we're going to use it to turn it inside out. So I'm just at the sewing machine. I was sewing the flat piece, but I just wanted to let you know not to sew this little side close. Don't sew vertically here because that'll just create unnecessary bulk inside here because this is going to get sewn in later, so you don't need to. You can leave it unsewn, so just sew all the way to close this curve and not the side here. Once the flap is sewn, you're going to get a pair of pinking shears, and we're just going to trim around all of the curves, so through here and then the entire thing. We're just trimming off some of that excess fabric. And you don't want to cut too close to your seam because you don't want to cut into it, and you want it to still be nice and strong. Once it's cut, we're going to turn it inside out from the open top end here, just like so. And then we're going to push out the curve, and we're going to take it to the iron and give it a good press. Once it's nicely pressed, your flap should look like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew a top stitch all along that same curved edge, just like that. And if you're finding your curve isn't coming out nicely, you can just readjust your fabric by going like this with your fingers, and it should pull it out right to the seam so that it's nice and crisp. Once the top stitch on the flap is sewn, it'll look something like that on both sides. Taking our two print A bottom template pieces and our two pieces of print C measuring 2 1/4 by 6 1/2, what we're going to do is we're going to align them with right sides facing here. So the bottom edge right here and the bottom edge right here. Not the edge without the fusible fleece, okay? So the edge with it. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew across using a 1/4 inch seam allowance here and here to join. Now that our pieces are joined, we're just going to open them up like so that the right side of our fabric is now visible. And then we're going to flip over to the wrong side and we're going to press our seams. Now I pressed mine open, but you can also press them to one side. It's up to you. But once you've done that, we're going to flip over back to the right side of our fabric, and we're going to sew a top stitch on the print C side here and over here. Once you've done your top stitch on both of your pieces, they'll look something like that. Once all of your pieces are complete, we're going to start assembling everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pocket piece and we're going to align it with one of these exterior panels. You can decide which one you like, but just know that this bottom part will be hidden behind the pocket, so it won't be seen as much. I originally wanted this one to be on the back because I fussy cut it, but I actually kind of like how many different animals are on this one, so I'm going to align my pocket piece with this one instead and leave this one for the back. So I'm going to set it aside. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to align this folded edge with the seam here, the joined seam, right there and right there so that it blends in perfectly. And then I'm going to do a couple stitches here and here to baste it in place. Once it's basted, I'm going to baste the whole bottom in place. Then we're going to attach our flap. Now that that's basted, I just want to give you a little option before we add the flap here. Now, if you notice when we place our flap down, we do have a bit of open space here. If you're planning on putting small items in here, you may be worried that stuff might come out. So the option is to sew about 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches in here on top of your top stitch, so in line with it, making sure to backstitch here. That way, if you're putting small things in here like I had jewelry, nothing will escape through the open part of the flap, and you can still add a lot of stuff in here because you'll have this open end, but it'll prevent things from coming out. That's just an option. I'm going to leave mine as is, but I wanted to provide that option for anyone who may be worried about that. With that same exterior panel and our flap, we're now going to baste it in place. So what we're going to do is from the left side here, we're just going to mark 1/2 inch in. Then what we're going to do is we're going to align the straight edge of our flap with that marking, just like so, and keep these straight edges aligned. And we're just going to baste all the way across here to hold it in place. Now that that's basted, we're going to start installing our snaps to both the flap and the pocket. Now, to do that, we need to do some prep work first. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually take our pen and we're going to pop a hole where the marking spot is. So, I mean a big hole. So right there, that way we can mark it later with our pen. Then what we're going to do is we're going to trim off the seam allowance so that we can align it perfectly with the sewn one we have here. Now that that's cut out, we're going to align this with our flap. As you can see here, it aligns with my flap here on the bottom. And then I'm just going to mark the location of my opening from that hole there. Now, if you want to do it manually, it is about 0.75 or 3/4 up from the edge, and it's not centered here. It's about 1/8 over this way, because I found when it was centered with this edge, because this edge is a little bit smaller, it looked too far this way. So I did do more of an optical adjustment so that it looked a bit better. So that's where your marking is going to be. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take a quilter's owl, or I don't know how to pronounce it, it's A-W-L, owl, and you're going to pop the hole here. You're going to make a hole here. There's also other tools that come with a lot of snap sets that make the hole for you so that you don't need to use one of these. You're just going to make the hole. Now that the hole is made, I'm just going to move these items out of the way, and then we're going to install our snap. So taking our piece, on the front side of our flap here is where we're going to be installing the cap. And on the back of the flap, we're going to be installing the socket piece. So this one here, I'm going to be using snap pliers. So I'm going to grab those now. So for my snap pliers, it actually came with the appropriate pieces. So I have this piece here for the socket. Oh my gosh, it's rolling away. And this piece here for the cap. So I'm going to assemble it now. Now, if you're using a snap press, Cam Snaps has a really great tutorial for the press. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the socket and I'm going to put it face in, because I want this side to be visible after, because that's the piece that's going to snap together. So just pop that in there if you can see. Then I'm going to take my cap and I'm going to insert it into my fabric. Oh, I think I need to remake my hole. Oh, there we go. So it's inside my fabric now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to align my fabric here with the cap piece here on the bottom, so it should fit perfectly. And then I'm going to press down to secure. And just like that, that side of the snap is installed. I think I put a little too much pressure because it pushed to the top, but that's okay. We're now going to install the other sides here. Now that this side of our snap is done, we're going to take our marking pen and we're going to see where it lands. So I'm just going to lift it up slightly, see exactly where the center of the snap lands. So mine lands right here. So if it was closed, it would land there. Just checking again. Always good to check before you do it, because these are extremely hard to remove. Sometimes you can't remove the snaps once they're installed. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to adjust our marking by over 1/8 of an inch, so about that, because we want to give some space so that stuff can be added to this. And we also don't want this, when it's sewn, to pull down. We want a little bit of space in here so that stuff can be added. Okay, so now we're going to install it to that marking there. For this part of the snap assembly, you're going to need a stud and a post, which is the longer piece, and the shorter piece. Following the same process as before, I'm going to take my quilter's owl and I'm going to push a hole where I would like my snap. And I like to actually push my owl all the way through. I do need to press it against myself in order to do so, but that way I make a big enough hole so that the post will go through. Now we're going to change out the pieces for our snap pliers. oops, this is rolling away again. So this piece here will go here, inside here, and we're going to screw it. And then this piece will go over here. And this piece is open like that. So it'll look like that. The stud and the post will be on these ones. So for these ones, the post is actually going to go through the back here. I think I need to remake my hole this time. Yes, I do. So I just remade the hole and pushed the post through. It looks like that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add the stud on top, and it'll click when you press it down, just like that. Then what you're going to do is you're going to want the post to go on this pointed part, so right in line with it, so it'll sit on top. See here, the post, that pointed part goes right inside the post in the middle. And then the stud will go right inside of this metal part. As you saw before, it had a hole, that's where it's going. So we're just going to close these ones again, apply some pressure, and it's installed. And we're just going to test our snaps now. Make sure it closes, just like that. Now that the snaps are installed, I forgot to mention that we're actually going to trim off this little end that's sticking out there. Here are my scissors. I'm just going to trim it off. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to install my handmade tag. And because I have a fussy cutted design right here, I don't want my handmade tag to get in the way there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add it to the back somewhere here. So I'm going to do that now. I think I might add it right here or up here. This is what it looks like with my handmade tag attached. I just did it 1/2 inch up from the joining seam and 1 inch in from the outer edge. We're now going to start installing our zipper. Taking our zipper and our Print B zipper tab, what we're going to do is we're going to start by opening our zipper, and we're going to want to open the side that the zipper pulls to close toward. So as you can see here, my zipper closes toward that side. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our zipper tab and we're going to align it with this edge here, the closed edge, just like so. And we want the wrong side of our zipper to face the right side of our fabric. And then we're going to sew across using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once your zipper tab is sewn, it should look something like that. I've already taken mine to the iron and creased it a bit, but that's just so that the next step is a little bit easier to show you. What you're going to do now is you're just going to open it up like this and flip over to the right side of your zipper. And then we're going to fold in the outer edge, that's approximately the width of our zipper. We're going to fold it in to the edge of the zipper, like so. And then one more time over to just cover that seam or be in line with that seam. Then what we're going to do is we're going to sew across close to that folded edge to secure the tab. Something I said in previous videos is you can sew a couple stitches here and a couple stitches here to hold the folds in place before sewing. That way they don't move when you sew across. Once your zipper tab is sewn to your zipper, it'll look something like this. As you can see here, I did those little stitches to hold my folds in place before sewing, and I made sure that they were just under 1/4 inch so that once I sew my zipper in, they will be concealed inside the seam allowance and you'll never know they were there. Taking a marking pen, you're first going to mark 1/2 inch in from each of these outer edges. So here, 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 and this one's already marked from before. We're then going to set aside the back panel and we're going to start installing the zipper to the front panel first. Similar to videos I've done before, we're going to curve the end of the zipper, but something I want to note is we want to make sure that the tab is on this side where the straight edge of our flap is. So this is the side it's going to be, and we want our zipper with right sides facing, so just like this. Because of this, we now know that this side of the zipper is going to be installed over here. What we're going to do is we're going to rotate it so that the zipper teeth are parallel with this edge. And we're going to sew a couple stitches here close to the edge right across just to secure this in place like so. Now that that's sewn, we're going to realign the edge of the zipper with that top 6.5 inch edge once again. So just like so. And where we sewed that little stitch, you're going to notice that it's going to start to fold. And that's what we want. We want it to fold here so that it curves the zipper. So we're just going to adjust it so it's neat and tidy. And then we're going to sew across here again to secure the fold in place. Then over here, we're just going to align the tab with that 1/2 inch marking. So our flap here, and we're just going to sew across here to secure right here. Once that's sewn, your zipper will be nice and aligned with that top edge, and we're going to flip it over to the wrong side, and we're just going to sew across here using a 1/4 inch seam allowance to secure the zipper. Once that side of the zipper is sewn, we're going to take one of our print D lining pieces and we're going to align it on top with the right sides facing, making sure those top 6.5 inch edges are aligned. We're then going to flip over to the fusible fleece side and we're going to sew across in line with the seam we just sewed. So if you can see my seam here, I'm going to sew in line with it. Now that that's sewn, we're going to open it up by bringing the wrong sides of our fabrics together, like so. And we're now going to add our zipper or attach our zipper to the other panel, so the back panel. And what we're going to do is we're actually first going to lay it out like this so we can see how we want it oriented. So because of this, we know that the tab will be sewn to this side and the bend of the zipper will be added to this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my zipper and I'm going to flip this over just like so. And I'm going to align my zipper parallel to this outer edge. So as you can see here, the teeth are parallel and the right side of the zipper is facing the fabric. And similar to what we did to the first piece, we're just going to sew across here to secure it in place, close to the edge. Now that that's secure, similar to last time, we're going to realign our zipper with the top 6.5 inch edge, like so. We're going to adjust our bend here, so make that fold neat and tidy, and then we're going to align our tab with this side. We're going to baste here, or sorry, sew across here close to the edge, and sew across here close to the edge in line with that 1/2 inch marking. Now that that's basted, we're going to make sure our zipper is nice and aligned with that 6.5 inch edge, and then we're going to flip over to this side and we're going to sew across using a 1/4 inch seam allowance just like before. Now that that's sewn, we're going to do the same thing as before with our remaining print D lining piece, and we're going to align those top 6.5 inch edges with the right side of our fabric facing the right side of our lining. So we're going to align it up here, and then we're going to flip over to the fusible fleece side, and we're once again going to sew in line with the seam we just sewed. Once that's sewn, you're going to do the same thing as before, and you're going to bring the wrong side of your fabric together to open it up. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip over to this side, and we're going to isolate each of our lining pieces, and we're going to press them away from our zipper. Due to the bulk of the fabric from the flap, it's really hard to do it together. Then you're going to isolate this one again, press that away from the zipper. And on this side, you can try to press it with a protective layer of fabric, but once the lining is pressed, I tend to just finger press it and then sew it across. So once it's pressed, we're going to sew top stitch on this side of the zipper. Then we're going to open our flap and sew on this side of the zipper. So I'm just at the sewing machine sewing my top stitch, and something I want to let you know about that I find was very helpful for me was as I sew, because of the thickness of the layers, I keep pulling on my lining here and there to make sure that underneath it's all nicely aligned just like the top is. So I not only pull on the bottom here and there, but then I keep my fabric nice and pulled away from the zipper on top. Since this is the suede, it has a tendency to move a lot, like back to where it was. So I just keep pushing on it. So I'm going to sew the rest of my top stitch now. Once your top stitch is done, it'll look something like this on both sides. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to open our zipper slightly, so bring the pull to the middle, and then we're going to bring our two exterior panels together. So just like so, and our lining pieces together. We're now going to align the joining seam here with here, like so, and baste it across here to secure it in place, and the same thing on this side. Then once those are secure, we're going to go in here and we're going to align the ends here in toward the lining. So we're going to align this one and this one toward the lining. And if you'd like, you can baste these together to make sure they stay together, or you can leave it as is, and because we're going to be sewing around, they'll get sewed down anyway. I'm actually going to go baste mine. Then once those are all basted, we're going to sew all the way around, leaving an opening here in the lining. I tend to leave about a 2.5 to 2.5 inch opening I tend to leave in these. Now that it's sewn all the way around, it'll look something like this. You're just going to go in and trim all of your strings, and then you're going to get a pair of pinking shears, and we're just going to trim all the way around this curve, trimming off some of that excess to reduce some of that bulk. Get all of this out of here. Once it's trimmed, we're going to turn it inside out using the opening in our lining. So I'm just going to do that now. Now, I find it easiest with this specific project to close the opening now as I'm turning it inside out, because all of the lining and part of the exterior is still pushed inside, so I can access the opening a lot easier since it's on the side. What I did was I just tucked all the raw edges inside so that I had a nice smooth edge here. I'm now going to either machine or hand sew it. Because the location of my opening is very close to this tab, it's actually a lot easier to hand sew it than it is to machine sew it. But depending on the location of your opening, you may prefer to machine sew it. So later on, I'm going to hand sew mine closed. Right now, just for time, I'm going to turn this inside out. I'm going to adjust everything here. And now that everything's kind of pushed out, I'm just going to take a knitting needle and kind of go along the curve to press it out, and then I'm going to press the entire thing. Once you've closed the opening in your lining and you've given your bag a good press, your round wing zipper bag is now complete. This is what mine looks like. So I have my front pocket here that's fully lined, and then my zipper pocket at the top. So I really hope you enjoyed this sewing tutorial. If you're looking for other projects to make, you can check out the other videos here on my YouTube channel. But that's all for today, so I'll see you all in January, hopefully with a sling bag tutorial.